talk about the biggest football games of the weekend. And yes, we are recording live today on a Tuesday because we wanted to record this show simultaneously with the college football rankings coming out. So you can turn on the rankings in the background, turn them down, turn those up as we discuss what the committee is about to decide for this week of college football and where the teams will be ranked. This is an interesting rankings, Bobby, because of all the shakeup with some of the um, upsets and teams that lost, particularly in the SEC, which we know is gets a lot of favoritism in these rankings, and that's nothing new. Um, and we also had a big loss in the Big Ten, obviously with Indiana going down. So I think what people are looking for in this rankings is where some of these SEC teams will be put, and also what opportunities might there be for other conferences like the ACC or the Big 12 to have teams that get into the 12 team bracket because of some of the losses that we saw happen this past Saturday. So it should be an exciting rankings.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's been a very interesting season for year one of the 12 team college football playoff, especially with how the SEC has become, out of nowhere, a very a league with a ton of parity. You're seeing a lot of these smaller kind of, I don't really want to call them minnows in college football, mainly because one of them is my team. But these smaller teams sneak up and bite some of the big contenders. There's really no top dog in the SEC, and it's intriguing to see how they weigh that out, how they weigh out strength of the schedule, because there are some teams, Indiana, I'm looking at you, that have a lower strength of schedule than others, and it's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out. But I believe first bits of rankings are coming across our screen. Excited to see how everything shakes out.
Yeah, so it looks like Colorado is coming in at number 25, so they dropped from, I believe it was 17. Brutal loss to Kansas in the Arrowhead Stadium. Um, so that's a tough drop for them. And there looks like they're below K State at 24. Illinois comes in at 23, and then the other two are going to pop up in a second. But
yeah, I got UNLV at 22 here, so
yeah.
Big move for the running Rebels.
Yeah,
but yeah, I Kansas has just been, they've been horrible this season. They've just been breaking hearts and tearing down dreams all year.
Yeah. Missouri's at number 21. So, yeah, Colorado being below K State is not a good thing if you're a Buffaloes fan. Kind of puts you with a big climb there. Missouri getting a little bit more respect, but they are still below three-loss Texas A&M, which is ranked here at 20. They have a big game this weekend that we're going to preview on the show, so stick around for that. And then BYU, who lost to Arizona State, takes a drop to number 19. They're at 9-2, so three Big 12 teams so far in the top 25, two SEC, and then you got Illinois from the Big 10, and then UNLV. Speaking of the Big 12, Iowa State coming in right before BYU at number 18 on the rankings. They got a big game as well that we're going to talk about in rapid fire, as well as Tulane, who plays Memphis this weekend. They are at number 17, right above Iowa State. And then Arizona State, number 16. So probably the highest ranked Big 12 team is number 16.
Yeah, the Big 12 is hammered drunk, which is why I assume Arizona State has been doing so well in it.
Man, that's crazy. All right, South Carolina getting a bump up to number 15. We're going to preview their game against Clemson on the show, so stick around for that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Don't sleep on the Gamecocks here. They're in striking position here at 15 to make for a little solid bid here. Yeah. And more craziness happens. Yes. What are we doing here? Ole Miss at 14? Okay. That's
a reminder. Ole Miss just lost to Florida, by the way.
does momentum not exist to these people?
That's
What sport have they been watching the second half of the year? Carolina has been significantly better.
Yeah. So Ole Miss ahead of A&M, South Carolina, and Missouri.
What are we watching?
That's insane. So now I'm like, where the hell is Alabama going to be? Because this is not.
Alabama at 13. Okay. Okay. All right. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
I mean, you knew they would get a bump, right? Yeah. Like, it's Alabama, but that performance last week against Oklahoma was atrocious. Yeah. That's silly.
So Alabama right now out of the playoff picture entirely. Kind of weird to say, but 13 still kind of like gets them knocking on the door, which is kind of crazy. Number 12 coming in, Clemson. Clemson gets a big bump. So we talked about at the beginning of the show, okay, what teams might get a bump from the SEC, having all those losses. Clemson benefits from the SEC faltering a little bit and jumping above any Big 12 team. So ACC might have a good chance in this playoff because their worst ACC team is above any Big 12 team and is ranked above 4 or 5, SEC teams. So Clemson got to take care of business against South Carolina, and if they do, that could put them in a really good position for the playoff.
Right. And, I think with Clemson where they are, that's a massive opportunity for South Carolina to jump into this, especially when you look at those similarly grouped teams like Ole Miss and Alabama who have to play Auburn, who is fighting for bowl eligibility, and Mississippi State, which is the worst team in the SEC. So South Carolina has a real opportunity to jump up into the college football playoff here.
Yeah. And Boise State, led by Ashton Gency, Heisman contender, is at number 11. No surprise there. Nice for them. They have had a good year, 10-1.
Notable that they're ahead of, significantly ahead of any Big 12 team, meaning that they would get the auto bye. I thought they looked kind of rough against Wyoming last week, so a little bit surprising.
Yeah.
It's like on my screen, number 10, you got Indiana. So the Hoosiers only falling 5 spots here. Yeah. Very lucky that the chaos in the SEC occurred for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting now because they're only. We'll talk about that in a second. SMU, 10-1. So again, ACC getting some love here in the poll, mostly because of the SEC teams losing. But yeah, Indiana, people are going to argue about that one. 10-1 is 10-1. But I think the discussion is going to be, well, Indiana got blitzed by Ohio State and then hasn't really played anybody else. And they're going to be ahead of some of these SEC teams. But you can't, how do you argue like 1 loss versus 3 losses? Like
you can't.
Yeah.
No, at some degree, the wins and losses have to matter. And I mean, there's Tennessee at number 8 with a 9-2 record. They took care of business, and that's why they deserve to be there. You can't lose 3 losses and then complain. You can't have 3 losses and then complain about it. You got to take care of business to some degree.
So my gripe might just be Clemson might have a gripe with Indiana being ahead of them, but Clemson's fine. If they do what they're supposed to do, they'll be okay.
Clemson shouldn't complain. They will because it's Dabo, but you know what I mean. And then looks like we got Georgia at number 7 here.
Yeah, Georgia
automatically qualified for the SEC championship, so they're awaiting the winner of Texas and Texas A&M.
Yeah, and we'll talk about their game against. Georgia Tech on the show because that's a sneaky good one.
Yep, no doubt.
Um, Number 6, Miami, 10-1, impressive season, gets a little bump as well. So Miami getting some love here. Um, they play Cal, I think. Oh no, they don't play Cal. They play where
Syracuse.
they play Syracuse. Okay, yeah, they'll play Syracuse this weekend.
Is that at the Dome or? Yeah, they obliterated Wake Forest, which who doesn't
Right,
obliterate them nowadays?
Cam Ward's still sort of in the Heisman combo.
Mm.
Notre
No-
Dame is number 5. Big win versus Army. I think. Go ahead, Bobby. Yeah.
I was gonna say, so right now Notre Dame's sitting at 5. It should be noted that, well, no, it should be noted that I almost said that they would automatically get number 5, but I forget they're going to be a bunch of Big Ten teams ahead of us here. So looking, the Irish looking pretty there. Um, and then coming in at 4, Penn State, 10-1. Pretty decent season for the Nittany Lions. Light schedule. Speaking of light schedules, Texas Longhorns at 3, then 2 Ohio State and 1 Oregon. They sped that up on us really quick there, Maxwell.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the playoff rankings. We're about to see where everyone's slotted into the bracket. Now that we know what the rankings are, so we know that they're slotting in Oregon, Miami, Texas, and Boise State as the teams with the auto bye. And then it looks like I can't see that very well. Arizona State would have the first round game in Columbus, right?
Yep.
And then you have Georgia, Penn State, and Notre Dame hosting playoff games as well, which would be awesome environments, I think.
Yeah. You would get Georgia, Tennessee. It looks like Georgia hosting Tennessee, Penn State hosting Indiana, and Notre Dame hosting SMU.
That's
which
actually
is
a nice bracket.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because it actually shakes out to just be normal conference games for all but Ohio State, Arizona State.
Yeah,
and
that's a pretty good bracket.
Yeah, I gotta say this too. I think the Big 12's getting screwed a little bit here because I know nobody's impressive, and we didn't expect this conference to go the way it did. But a 9-2 record in the Big 12 isn't anything to scoff at, and I think when you compare that to what Boise State's had to do in the Mountain West, I get Genty, I get that they played Oregon tight, but beyond that, I mean, the resumes should be apples and oranges. I think a 9-2 season for Arizona State is significantly more impressive.
Yeah, I just don't understand the obsession with like having all these SEC teams ahead of like the Big 12 teams. Like I don't understand, and I have to take a look again because I'm just so confused. Like I get they're it's a tough conference. They're playing tough games, but I just don't really get like I get your point about Boise State, but I'm like, if I'm in the Big 12, like my gripe even more is like why am I below like K State and Colorado below UNLV, Missouri? I just don't understand. I think I agree with you. Big 12 getting screwed, but I think the conversation is more like why is their conference is stacked. I mean, you have like you have 5 other teams in the top 25.
Yeah,
And like
it's just
like what?
I don't understand it. And I think with some of those, when you talk about UNLV being ahead of them, the problem is UNLV actually beat Kansas. So I don't know if they're doing head to head right now. Who knows what the committee's doing at this point, but that's probably one aspect of it. But it's just, yeah. If you think about it, the Big 12 is just a tinier, like a smaller, less notable version of the SEC when it comes to like prestige of these teams. because the same thing's happening. It's just, Houston beating Kansas State instead of Oklahoma beating Alabama. And to me, that shouldn't, I don't know. I think this is weighted improperly, and I think it's pretty unfair to put, a Big 12 champion who I think that league's way tougher than the Mountain West by far.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I don't understand why we're putting Boise where they are. I get they've had a good season, but also they struggled with Wyoming last week, and the Mountain West is just not even remotely on that level. So beats me.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are the rankings. Kind of just like that's so fascinating. And some of these other games were sort of, I guess, help answer some of our questions here this weekend. Um, I mean, another big takeaway for me is like I wasn't necessarily rooting for Colorado, but like, dang, they put themselves in a hole. Like they're screwed. Like I don't know what their path is.
I will say, all you have to do is win the Big 12,
Yeah.
and the Big 12 is a total cluster right now. I don't know if you've seen the scenarios to get to the Big 12 championship game, but
No, tell the audience.
Here's the thing. I would love to tell the audience. The
Oh,
problem is my brain does not understand it. Apparently there is legitimately a scenario where the championship game could be Baylor versus Texas Tech, and the winner of that game would get a playoff spot, which would be hilariously dumb if you've watched either of those teams this season. It is a total cluster, and I have no idea how to project how it's going to turn out. And that's just kind of how the world of these super conferences with no divisions work. It's a bunch of tiebreakers with not enough common opponents, and I don't know. You just gotta see how it all works out. But it's nuts. It is very, very nuts.
Wow. Okay. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to pull up the rankings. Or sorry, pull up the what I need to see. I'm going to pull up ESPN's playoff predictor, and then oh wait, it hasn't been updated.
There are 4 different teams in the Big 12 with a 6-2 record.
That's insane. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
that's absolutely insane. All right, let's get to the biggest games of the weekend. I'm like too much going on. I don't know what to do.
I don't blame you. Yeah, let's. Yeah, this is breaking my brain. Let's move on to some football games.
Yeah. Let's do it. All right, here we go. Georgia Tech at Georgia. That's our first big game. A sneaky good one because Georgia Tech, I feel like they beat Florida State and then everyone sort of forgot about them. They have only lost 2 games this year. They will take on Georgia, who the committee ranks number 7. Georgia is favored by 19.5. That game is going to be between the hedges in Athens. The total is 53.5. Will Georgia be able to avoid an upset in this one?
I think they'll be able to avoid an upset. I don't know. Georgia Tech is scrappy though. I mean, we saw them beat Miami. In Atlanta. Obviously, what happened to Florida State and Dublin was impressive. So they're really not afraid of anybody. And because of that, I think this game will probably end up being a little bit closer than you would expect. But I just think Georgia, even though you technically are like have a path to the college football playoff, regardless of the outcome of this game, with the SEC championship looming, you want to win this one to make sure that you have a little bit of wiggle room if you find a way to lose to Texas or Texas A&M to still get into the playoff. So I think they'll still be focused. I think they'll still be locked in, and I think they're going to. I like the Dogs overall, but I can see a way where Georgia Tech could scrap in this one. And let's be honest, this college football season has been so crazy that really anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. And sorry, I misspoke before. I think I said that Georgia Tech has lost 2 games. They've lost 4 games. But against 2 of them against, I would say, tough opponents in Louisville and Notre Dame. And like you said, they do have some good wins. I think the Florida State opener, hindsight, that team sucks, but I think at the time that was a really good win considering the circumstances and what the season that Florida State was coming off of, the hype and everything like that. DJU was still healthy, things of that nature. They also had a really good win against Miami a couple weeks ago, and then beat NC State here in a close one. So I think going to Georgia, we know this team is well coached. We know this team has the right mentality. We know this team has already done has already upset 2 teams already. Like no matter what you think of Florida State now, that was an upset at the time. Miami, that was an upset. So they've already done this twice. And Georgia is sort of like in a position where, yeah, can you rely on the cushion of already having a conference championship bid? Sure. But you don't want to lose this game. Um, but again, with having the conference championship to look forward to, it kind of becomes a thing of, okay, how do you avoid overlooking this Georgia Tech team? Um, so for me, I think Georgia, even if they don't play a great game, they should be able to out talent Georgia Tech. But I love how Georgia Tech is coached. I love how they approach these big games, these tough opponents. Um, they play lights out against Miami. Like, I think if any team can beat Georgia this year, and I'm not Georgia's been beaten, we know that. But if any team can pull off an upset of this magnitude, it is Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is built for upsets. So I have them covering 19 and a half. That number is outrageous to me. Like that is a huge spread for a team like this. I think they definitely cover, and I almost want to lock it, but I won't. um, but has looked really great. Um, over the last 2 weeks since losing to Ole Miss. Um, but I think Georgia Tech is going to be able to give them a little bit of a scare.
Agreed. Agreed. In. I think we're pretty much in consensus there.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So it should be a good game. That one is once again going to be at Georgia's. It's a Friday 7:30 kick, so that'll be really fun to see it on your put it on your Black Friday schedule. Um, Georgia Tech at Georgia should be a fun one to see. And you got Tech covering as well, Bobby, right? Just for the record.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I did not add that to the doc, but yes.
Yeah, I got you. All right. Next game. This one's Saturday noon kick. Um, we got South Carolina and Clemson. So we saw South Carolina come in at 15 below Ole Miss, which was a shock, as you saw Baba react to that. And then Clemson come out at 12, getting a bump from the SEC, um, losing in the fashion that they did. Um, Clemson's favored by 2.5. The total is 49.5. Looking at the way that the college football playoff picture panned out, what's at stake?
Yeah. I mean, a massive amount is at stake in this one. I don't believe Clemson controls their own destiny to get into the ACC title, given that Miami, has their game with Syracuse, and this one doesn't really count for the ACC championship race. So I don't know what the tiebreakers are there, but if you're Clemson, you don't want to bank on that as a path to getting into the college football playoff. Because of that, they're going to have to earn their way in. And this does present a massive opportunity for both of these schools, really, because South Carolina, as mentioned a little bit earlier, I feel like has a chance to leap into the college football playoff conversation with a win and vault themselves ahead of the Alabamas, the Ole Misses, who are frankly SOL right now and
Yeah.
just needing a bunch of chaos. But South Carolina can control their own destiny in a way and put themselves right at, breathing right down Indiana's throat here, or neck rather,
Yeah.
um, and poise themselves for a really big spot. Same with Clemson. Same with Clemson. I think both of these teams. I don't want to call it a play-in game because I think there's still a lot to be done and said, and you never know what'll happen. But it feels like it could be a college football playoff play-in game, just given where both are where the similar teams are, and if you're Clemson, I don't think I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if they'll put three ACC teams in, depending on who loses in Charlotte. If you put a loser of that game in over a Clemson, I don't know. It's going to be very intriguing. But if you're Clemson, you want that really really big Palmetto Bowl win under your belt if you want a chance to make the college football playoff. You have to. You have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. So Michael is right here. SMU has clinched already. So we have one team already in the ACC championship. So there's only one spot left. We talked about this last week, I think, Bobby, where there's a weird scenario where it might be beneficial for a team not to go to the conference championship in the ACC, and this might also play out in other conferences too, because what could happen is you've got SMU at I'm sorry, you got Clemson who's got two losses. If they beat South Carolina this week, that's going to give them a bump. If they can avoid going, if they can avoid having to play in the conference championship and avoid another loss that would hurt them, they could possibly get a playoff spot by virtue of not having a third loss, even though they don't play a college, even though they don't play a conference championship, sort of the way Ohio State a couple years ago got into the 14 playoff because they didn't have to play the Big Ten championship. That sort of scenario. Um, so yeah, so this is like kind of what Clemson is. That's what we're wrestling with. But I think the key is that they have to beat the South Carolina team, which the committee obviously has some respect for. Kind of, sort of. They're still below Ole Miss, still below Alabama, but they're high enough to where like Clemson could get in a good position simply by winning the game and letting the rest figure itself out. As for the ACC as a whole, to me, the best case for the conference is that you have, um, I mean, really, to me, like Miami, as long as Miami gets there to play SMU, the winner or loser of that game doesn't really matter because then you're talking about a conference championship auto bid to the winner of the game. You would have either SMU or Miami at two losses, and then Clemson, grant provided they beat South Carolina, will also have two losses. So I think the conference ACC champ and two loss ACC teams are getting into the playoff. Um, that's the best case scenario is if Clemson does not make the conference championship, and if they do make it, they got to win. If they lose, they're out. That means it's as simple as that. So that's how you get three ACC teams in, fair or unfair. Um, but in this game in particular, to be honest with you, Bobby, I think the only reason Clemson is favored by 2.5 is because this is in Death Valley. Like if this game is in South Carolina, that line is completely different. Um, and don't get me wrong, Clemson's great at home. Like we know they are, and that could make a lot of the difference. But to me, like these are two pretty even teams. Clemson has been quietly good this year, but we know, um, they slipped up a couple weeks ago at home against Louisville, which was a surprising loss. And since then, 10-point win over Tech, 4-point win over Pitt. Obviously, you're going to blow out Citadel. That's not a surprise. But when they've played quality competition or a competition that's better than Citadel, like they've played these games pretty tight. So I honestly don't know if they beat South Carolina. Um, and I see you have South Carolina plus 2.5. Or is that are you feeling South Carolina to win this game?
Yeah, I'm feeling the Gamecocks here, and I think it's twofold for me. One, we've seen Clemson, not exactly be perfect at home, and two, the last time South Carolina bagged a win in this game, it was at Clemson in 2022. So it's not exactly this, unstoppable force down there in the Orange Death Valley, and I think to me, South Carolina's a better team. They're a more physical team on defense. They've got edge rushers that are just unbelievably good, some of the best in the SEC. Lenora Sellers has really hit a rhythm. Raheem Rocket Sanders has been awesome as well. I just feel like South Carolina is a significantly more well-rounded team. They're battle tested. They've played some really damn good SEC teams, and Clemson just kind of isn't. With all due respect to the ACC, which is I think a top heavy conference. Clemson just hasn't really faced any of the dogs. They haven't run into Pitt, or sorry, they ran into Pitt and barely escaped. That
Yeah.
was your toughest one. Who is it turned out to not be that great. You didn't run into Miami. You didn't run into SMU. The team with a pulse really you faced the most was Louisville, and you got embarrassed at home. So to me, I think this Clemson team is, you know, quite literally a paper tiger. I'm going big on South Carolina here.
Yeah, this one's so hard to predict. I know Dabo's going to have his team ready for this game. They're going to have him ready for this moment. He does well in some of these games where something is on the line. We know we've seen Clemson lose big to some teams, like when it's early in the season or when nothing's at stake. But I don't know, man. Conference championships, when something's on the line, like Clemson just can sort of turn on that switch. I think when they were in their like championship heyday, like I know they obviously won a couple of championships. I know in some and sometimes they just got flat out beat. And I think that was just sort of about like them not being ready and the talent on the other side being better in a couple of the cases. But I think in games like this, especially in the especially in conference play, um, they seem to do well. So I'm gonna ride with you though. I'm gonna take South Carolina um, and the points. Um, but I'm not like excited about it. Like I think Clemson could definitely win this game. I wouldn't be surprised. 94% of the public is betting Clemson money line, and 57% of the public are betting Clemson to cover the 2.5 spread, 2.5 point spread. So just some interesting stuff there, but yeah, I think South Carolina. This is sort of a different team in a lot of ways. And I will say this: I think if we're talking about like South Carolina moving forward, this would be a very good win for them and for Shane Beamer to have in his cap as he molds this program to take the next step into the upper echelon of the SEC. So this is like one of those games that South Carolina would normally lose, but they've been on a heater as of late, and yeah, yeah, I think I feel I think I talked myself into to the Gamecocks plus 2.5. Okay, let's keep this rolling. Let's keep it rolling here. We got Texas, um, who came in at number 3 on the poll, favored by 5.5, going to Kyle Field. Um, going to Kyle Field against Texas A&M, who got to number 20 in the CFP rankings. Total is 48.5. Update on Quinn Ewers' status. Quinn had an ankle injury in the last game against Kentucky. That was um, diagnosed as a high ankle sprain, and he is expecting. He's been practicing, and everyone expects him to play against the Aggies. He won't be 100%. I think that's obvious, but I don't think Quinn Ewers is ever 100%. That's sort of the book on him. Interesting talking point this week about speaking of Quinn Ewers. Um, some people were sort of like putting rumors out there that he could possibly hit the portal, and after the season, I don't know where his draft stock is or will be. It could improve. If Texas makes the playoff and he plays well, like he could get some love in the draft. I think people will always be concerned about his injury situation, but um, I, I, barring like another big injury or barring like a complete meltdown, I don't see why Quinn would stay in college past this year. But anyway, um, they got a big game coming up against A&M. What's what are you looking at? What's like your expectations of how this game is going to go?
Yeah, I mean, yours' health is pretty massive. Because I think Arch is going to be a fine player one day, but that is not the place you want to throw a young, redshirt freshman into, to say the least. So if yours is healthy or can play well, like that changes things dramatically for Texas. Um, this is going to be a cauldron of absolute hate in a way that I think the best way I can describe it, Maxwell, is for folks who are familiar with the NBA, which everyone should be at least familiar with this one. This reminds me of like LeBron returning to Cleveland in a way, where everybody in that building despises, well, except for the Texas section, despises Texas, and the hate, the vitriol that has been built up over this decade plus, of offline chatter and bickering and all of this, it's going to be uncorked at Kyle Field. And I I know some might look at that Auburn loss last week and be like, well, did this game lose any steam? And no, it didn't. This is for a spot in the SEC title, which is massive for multiple reasons. Primarily because neither of these teams have played in an SEC championship game. And Lord knows if Texas gets to the SEC title game before Texas A&M, and it comes off of a Texas A&M or a win against Texas A&M, they'll never hear the end of it. So a lot's at stake. The pressure's on, and I think the Aggies, having home field in this one is a massive advantage. So I think what I'm primarily looking for is, can Texas operate without that pressure? Can they take the A&M crowd as out of that game as you can? Because they're a little different. If you know anything about Texas A&M, they're a little different. They power through and are locked in ways that other fan bases aren't, because they're kind of weird and don't really get their dauber down as much. But if you can control that game early, send a sharp right hook to the Aggies early, get out big like you haven't all season long, establish a significant lead, make them doubt that they have a chance to win. I think that the Longhorns, that's their path to victory, because if this thing is close, you can see this thing snowballing, turning into a turnover fest, and Texas loses control of this game. They have to shut the water off right at the source at the very start.
Does Texas even need to win this game
to make the playoff? No, they're in. But it's more than that. Because you're right. Texas is going to be in. I don't think I think it's annoying as hell that their schedule has gotten them to a point like this, because they don't need to go to the SEC championship game. In fact, it's probably going to be nice for them to get a rest, because they're going to get into the playoff. It'll change if they host, I'm sure,
Yeah.
or not host, but they're in the playoff.
Yeah.
But it matters. It's different. This game matters for more than a playoff berth. And I know that sounds insane, maybe to folks outside of this bubble, but this first one is going to be huge for bragging rights, for everything, and the added SEC title berth on the line just cranks it up to another notch.
I will say this, that I think Texas does not need to win this game for the playoff. But I think a team like Texas and a quarterback like Quinn Ewers that's been banged up all year, I think low key you do need to win this game and you do need to win the conference championship, because that bye is going to be everything. That bye is going to be everything because of it's a week of rest you get. Um, you get the extra week of rest, extra time to prepare, which is great for a coach like Sark. Neutral site game, and yeah, you don't have to like take this team who, you know, is coming off a long season, postseason last year. A lot of players back from that year. Quarterback need time to get healthy. Like perfect situation to take care of business for him to have that time off, come back and ball out. You don't want this team having to go play at Boise State or
I
at
think
Mississippi State or
they'd
whatever.
be safe from Boise, but it would be like at Penn State.
Yeah,
Like,
Penn State. Yeah,
oh no, you
yeah,
you win this game, and your worst case scenario, you're hosting a team in Austin.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that that is good.
yeah,
Lose, and you're on the road at a place you really don't want to be.
yeah, yeah. I think it's that deep. I think it's that deep for Texas. So, um, yeah, Texas needs this. I mean, A&M needs this more. A&M needs this more, and that might show up. But I think Texas needs this too. That's why I'm taking Texas. Um, haven't been perfect. Have had some bumpy looking games, even in the wins. But I think um, if Quinn's able to stay upright, um, and the Longhorns' offensive line shows up, then I think they'll be able to control the game. What Texas really should just do is run the ball. They had a great performance from their freshman running back last week. We know that Blue was good. This is going to be a very very raucous and loud crowd at A&M. So take the pressure off your quarterback, run the ball, control the clock, control the situation, play good defense, keep A&M off the field. Um, don't turn the ball over. That's Texas's path to winning. So I
Yeah,
like the Longhorns.
yeah, and I think for Texas A&M, it's making Texas pretty one dimensional.
Yeah,
Um, if you can take away if you can make it where the run game isn't effective, like they obviously want to throw, but if you force them into, you got to throw every down, you know, you can just send the dogs at them. I think that changes things, because I think this is a game where you could really see some big play from Nick Scorton, that edge rusher, hometown guy. He knows how big this is. And to me, I feel like Texas, they've played in very few road environments. They played in Fayetteville against an outmatched Arkansas team, but they haven't played in something like this. This is a different level. Um, I believe they haven't played two SEC teams with like winning conference records this season. So this is yeah, for real, for real. UMass has played more, which is hilarious. But I feel like this is walking into the Lions' Den, and like you said, it A&M needs this more, Maxwell. They need it for reasons beyond just the playoff. They need it for their culture. They need it for everything that is being an Aggie is about beating Texas. It's in the fight song. Their entire fight song is about how much they hate these guys. Like, not just a line, the entire damn thing. It lives, it breathes through their soul. Everything about their being is about beating Texas. And they have an opportunity to send a severe body blow to their national championship hopes, to elevate A&M to a level that it has not reached in the SEC yet. And I feel like the way the defense is constructed is really set up to give Texas a lot of hell on offense. And I think the offense, if Marcel Reed can, look a little bit sharp, or Wegman, or whoever you throw out there, it's probably going to be Reed. I think you can have a really, you can operate well. To me, for Texas, defensively, find a way to shut out the Aggies. When you make mistakes, which you will, don't let them capitalize on them. And I think that will be huge for them. Because if you do, if A&M could really snowball this thing, it's going to be over. I like A&M. I think it's a big game. I think just sometimes you got to go with vibes, and I think the vibes here are going to be so pointed towards the Aggies that it's going to be ridiculous. So I like A&M in the big time spot.
Yeah, this will be a good game. I think I love like how much this game matters, like right now, which is the beauty of the 12-team playoff. Like this game meaning so much for both teams. A&M still having a shot with the 3 losses, and then sort of like what this win could do for them in their season. Um, would be such a beautiful thing. Um, but yeah, well, I mean, we'll see how it goes. This is gonna be a fun one.
And I do want to say, everybody's saying that the college football regular season doesn't matter as much anymore. Oh, the 12-team playoff has screwed it up. Here's a Texas team that is pretty much guaranteed to make the playoff. And this game matters immensely.
Yeah.
It matters immensely. Even though they can still get in, the variation, take the rivalry out of it, the variation of what can happen to your season, to your postseason going forward, is massive just from one game. I'm just saying.
I think I saw a tweet from Booger McFarland where he was like talking about how he used to think that what you just said. He used to think that the 12-team playoff would make games matter less, and he's like, "No, I realize that the games matter more." And I'm like, "Yeah, like the games matter more, and they matter more for more teams. There are so many different scenarios that so many teams are impacted by this weekend, and it's fun. Like last week, Alabama, Oklahoma. Something was at stake for both teams. It wasn't just like, oh, just another game. Like, no, like Oklahoma was fighting to get to the bowl eligibility, which means something to that program. And Alabama, their playoff lives are at stake. And now there's drama in the whole thing now because they lost. Like it's and now they got to go to the play in the Iron Bowl. Like this is our season. We're 13. We got a little bit of a shot, but damn, like you know, we we got to win this game, like to even have a chance. So, nah, this was the right move. I love this
Yeah.
format.
Or even like SMU, who, like, if their season would have been over with that BYU loss in like September, and none of this would have mattered. None of this run they went on would have mattered. And
Notre,
that
Notre Dame, Notre Dame would have been cooked.
now that's the one thing I am behind. I wish Notre Dame was still cooked. I'm biased though.
That's so funny. All right, last game we're gonna talk about, and of course we had to save this one for last. It's the game. This is the one that I'm sure Michael Lofton is tuned in for to tune in to hear us talk about. Um, Saturday noon kick. Ohio State favored by 21 points. It's been a long time since that team has been favored by that much in this matchup. And the total is 42 and a half. All right, so based on the rankings that we saw, I wrote down that we're going to talk about the scenarios for the playoff in the Big Ten. Um, so for the Big Ten, I going back to what we already know based on who's clinched, we know Oregon is already in the game, and so um, I think Ohio State, if they were to lose this game, what would happen then? What's the scenario if Ohio State loses to Michigan?
If Ohio State loses to Michigan, I think they're still in. I think what they've done so far, I think the Indiana win was definite. It's obviously not a good loss for a multitude of reasons. Ryan Day losing four straight to Michigan, and then the fourth being this Michigan team
Yeah,
without Harbaugh. Like, I mean that's as big of a gut punch as it gets. Um, but I mean, I think a two-loss Ohio State is still in over Indiana. Should be in over Penn State, but I don't
you,
know.
you saying they
I,
should be in the Big Ten championship or in the playoff?
the playoff because I think Big Ten championship. I don't think they've clinched it because,
No, they haven't. It's
but
just only Oregon is clinched. So I'm trying to figure out because Ohio State's beaten Indiana and Penn State. So if
oh, it would be Indiana or Penn State because they would have two losses. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, they need it for the Big Ten championship, but does it matter?
so I
I think wherever Ohio State goes on the road, they'd be okay. I think this is a damn good Ohio State team, and
yeah,
you know, we'll obviously talk about it later. I don't think it's gonna. I think we're talking about a reality that's not going to exist, man.
yeah.
I'm telling you, this Buckeye team is really scary.
All right, so here's the scenario. I found the scenarios. All right, I would say they go to the Big Ten championship if they beat Michigan. Penn State would go in the event of Ohio State losing and them beating Maryland. Indiana would go if Purdue. I'm sorry, Indiana would go if they beat Purdue, and Penn State and Ohio State lose. So those are the scenarios that would need to happen. So if Ohio State lost, they would just miss the Big Ten championship, and either Penn State or Indiana would go based on you know whether Penn State won or not, basically. Um, so I think you're right, though. Ohio State makes the playoff regardless of what happens in this game. They're going to get knocked. They would get. I think they would get knocked down significantly because of this Michigan team, and that game is in Columbus. How far? I'm not sure. I don't know if the committee would necessarily put them behind any three-loss SEC team, but I think it wouldn't look good for them. Like I think there would be some teams that would jump ahead of them, like a Clemson that had two losses, SMU. Maybe I don't know, but I think I agree. I digress. I think this is not a situation that is going to happen. I think Ohio State is going to beat Michigan here, um, but I think Michigan covers. 21 points is crazy. 21 points is crazy. Um, and I think it's because of what our friend Michael Lofton is saying here. Um, certain rivalries matter more. Certain games matter more. Um, this is different, and I think Michigan having won all these games against Ohio State in the last few years, I think this team has an awareness that they are not the team of last year. They're not the team from 2 years ago, but I think they still have a lot of pride, and I think Ryan Day still has this monkey to get off his back. And so to me, that reeks of cover like nobody's business for Michigan. But Ohio State, knowing everything that's in front of them, um, and I think even like this Ohio State team should not only be excited to win this game, but should be excited about what they did last week and what they have the potential to do against Oregon if they get a rematch. So I think the talent is going to play dividends for the Buckeyes. But I would be shocked if Michigan does not cover. And if Michigan didn't cover, it would just be because the talent discrepancy is just too much to overcome.
I think to me the difference is I think the talent discrepancy is clearly there,
Yeah,
and I think the motivation is clearly there after 3 straight losses. I mean, it's there with Michigan too, but what are you going to do about it at this point? And to me, I feel like in Columbus, you're fired up, you're ready to end these guys. If Ohio State goes into this with the right mindset, the right attitude of we are we need to get rid of this 3-year streak right now, and we need to do it in an emphatic fashion that we're back. And if they go into it with that mindset, I think they're going to destroy Michigan. With all due respect to the Wolverines, I just feel like they're an inferior opponent. And I feel like this is a situation where Ohio State finally gets a revenge big time. That being said, how many times have we seen this Ohio State team show up flat and get out physicaled? And I could definitely see a world where Ohio State waltzes into this one is like, well, we just beat a top 5 team. Michigan's bad. We got this in the bag. And then they just get punched in the damn mouth by a Wolverine team that, knows how to be physical. And I kind of think if this game, this is going to be a hot take. I'm going to go ahead and say it though. If Michigan covers and if this is a close game, then I think Ryan Day is clearly not the guy, and you need to get rid of him. I think this is a game that Ryan Day needs to make an emphatic statement to get those Michigan demons off of his back and just decimate them. Because ML's right, the game does matter. It matters so much, and if Ohio State, if they can respect what the game means, and if they can respect how embarrassing and how brutal it is to have a 3-game losing streak to your rival, and to know the opportunity that they have to really just take their head and shove it in it, then they're going to take that opportunity. And I think that I have a feeling they will relish in it, but if they don't, if they come out flat after everything that's happened, you got to get rid of Day. I'm just saying, he's not the guy.
I agree with you wholeheartedly because of two things. One, Ryan Day to me has gotten just too much credit for it's the whole what was it, the third base thing from Jim Harbaugh,
Yeah, born on third. Yeah.
I'd say right, okay, cool, Ryan Day, Ohio State is always good.
They've never been bad.
My sports philosophy is I don't really care. I need you to do great things with great players and great infrastructure and great ownership and great support. But I'm gonna be more impressed if people do great things with less, and I'm going to be less impressed if people miss the mark or don't dominate with great surroundings. Um, so that's my thing when it comes to Ryan Day, and I think the other part of it is the way Michigan is recruiting. Like Ohio State's going to be in trouble because if you can't dominate this Michigan team, are you going to be able to do it when they have a 5-star quarterback? And things are going to turn around for them quickly. Um, you know what I'm saying? So I just totally agree with that. Um, but this game should be huge for the Buckeyes. Um, and I think they do have a lot to prove. Um, but they have a lot of things after this to prove. But I think for them, it starts here. I don't think you want to go to the playoff and the Big Ten championship against Oregon again with a bad taste in your mouth or feeling like, oh, we didn't do what we should have done against Michigan. Like you don't want to be thinking about the Wolverines, when you're playing these other teams. And let's say, like, to kick the can down the road a little bit, let's say no matter what happens in this game, you face Oregon and you lose again, right? You tried your best, you lose again. Well, you don't want to still be thinking about Michigan when you got to go to Texas. I mean, sorry, yeah, when you got to go wherever you got to go. I'm gonna stop naming schools. When you got to go wherever you got to go to play your first round game, Tennessee, to play your first round game, and then go on down the path to what should be a championship year for you. So um, yeah, it's a big one. We know that. ML, sorry, it's the third best OSU team in the last 4 years. They're good. Um, Not good on the O line. Um, yeah. So anyway, sorry. I feel like we're dragging this on a little bit. Um, so yeah, what does this come down to? A close game or a blowout? I think Michigan covers. Um, that's my official prediction. I'm locking it in. You got Ohio State covering, Bobby?
I also think this is a type of game where the rules of engagement go out the window and you pour it on them.
Yeah,
You really this is one where there's no gas to let off. You
yeah,
absolutely pour it on them if you have the opportunity to.
yeah.
And I think Ohio State does.
I hate to put salt on the wound. This game for Ohio State should be looking exactly like Texas's game against OU because
Yeah,
that's the type of team that Michigan is. And if you're Ohio State, you have to consider yourself on or above Texas's caliber. You're ranked higher than them, so that game should look like that one. And you're at home. Texas was at a neutral site, so like
I
it's
think
not.
Ohio State looks like the best team in the country right now.
Yeah,
I think they look like the most complete team. The defense put Indiana in absolute hell
yeah,
last week. It was. I'm just saying. I think this thing could get ugly.
yeah. All right. Well, that was our four biggest games of the weekend. Let's run through these rapid fire picks before we get out of here, Bobby. Um, Tennessee at Vanderbilt. Tennessee, um, two losses, sort of still the SEC team that nobody's talking about. Um, this could be a big upset for them if they don't take care of Vanderbilt in Nashville. Um, Away game, but you expect to see a lot of fans there. I like Tennessee to get the job done. Vanderbilt's been a cool story this year. Don't get me wrong, but I think Tennessee pulls this one away and people keep sleeping. People will keep sleeping on the Volunteers.
Yeah, Tennessee fans are chirping that they're going to checkerboard out the stadium. I don't know if they'll do that. It'd be damn funny if they did, though. Look, Vandy, to me, they have their moments, and I think I've said earlier in the week I thought they could cover, but I remember their worst performance was against South Carolina. They struggled with it against really good edge rushers, and James Pierce might be one of the best players in the country. Very slept on for the Volunteers. I got Tennessee.
We thought this game might mean more now, but it means absolutely nothing. Um, it will be a good win for Notre Dame, but for USC, um, their season's pretty much wrapped up. They've gotten bowl eligibility. They've you know got some things to fix. This will be just more tape for their their young quarterback, who um, replaced Miller Moss last week. So you got kind of that in your wheelhouse, if anything, if you are USC. But and sorry, I'm referring to Mavia. for the Trojans. But anyway, this game uh, will be another good win for or the Notre Dame if they can get it. I'm taking Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins big. USC, not a good team. I know this means a lot to them, but they barely beat UCLA. No, I don't have any confidence in them. I think Notre Dame puts up some big numbers in the Coliseum. I might. I don't know if I can go, but I'm kind of. But
you,
maybe I'll see what I can do. But yeah, big. I think Notre Dame wins big.
this game this game of college football has had so many surprises overall, and I think this last week's going to have a couple of them. I think this is going to be one of them. I think USC, since bringing in Jaden Mayava, has been better. They've righted the ship. They got bowl eligible, and what better way to stick it to your rivals than by completely soiling their college football playoff chances? At the Coliseum. You know, I don't know. I think we might see a different Notre Dame team when they're not playing a service academy or a bad ACC team. We'll see. And USC is obviously not great, but that's the thing with Lincoln Riley is he can be a little bit squirrely when you when you least expect him. So I'm gonna go with the Trojans here on a bit of an upset.
All right, that'll be a fun one. Kansas State and Iowa State. Both teams not great. Neither team got a great spot in the rankings here, but um, both teams could use this win to kind of make up some ground and kind of stick around in the Big 12 conversation. Um, Iowa State was at 18. They were the second highest ranked Big 12 team behind Arizona State. K State was at 24. Um, I'm taking the Cyclones.
Yeah, I love myself a good bit of Farmageddon here. Great rivalry name. We're actually getting this the next time we see this matchup. It'll be week 0 in Dublin next year. So finally a good week 0 game. That'll be fun. This is tough, but as according to the rules of the Big 12, anytime a team looks like they're in good position, the other one has to find a way to screw them up. I'm going to go Kansas State on the road to upset Iowa State, kind of peeing their Cheerios a bit and knock them out of the Big 12 title race here, leaving us to once again have zero clue what's going to go on. We still don't have any idea what's going on, but K-State probably can't get there, but they're going to find a way to screw it up for their neighbors over in Ames.
I love it. All right, two more fun ones. Mac Brown's final game in North Carolina. It was announced today that he got fired. Been a wild era since Mac Brown's been back. Been some excitement, been a lot of disappointment. I just have to say thank you, Mac Brown. I know you're not watching this, but thank you, Mac Brown. Thank you, Mac Brown, for what was it? 4 or 5 years of Sam Howell and Drake May combined. Um, Great to watch that fun quarterback play. Disappointed that it didn't translate to anything in the postseason, but um, yeah, I mean, got to turn the page. I think it'll be interesting to see what the interest looks like in the North Carolina job. Um, I think there's a lot to build upon, and the ACC, of course, is a blank canvas. There's so much you can do in that conference. So we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, last game for Mac. This is at home. I think the guys will come through for him. It's been a tough year for UNC with you've had the death of a teammate. You've had um, just a disaster of a year in terms of the aftermath of an NFL quarterback being on your roster, and new things are on the horizon. But I think in this one, we're playing an NC State team who normally, you know, has a lot to prove. always comes ready to play in this game, always plays hard. Dave Doran has a Kendrick Lamar esque hatred for UNC, so I expect the Wolfpack to uh, play with their hair on fire. But this is a really bad NC State team. Um, they've lost to pretty much any team with a pulse this year, and UNC I think wins big for their coach. Give me
S-
the Heels. Go Heels.
So so Max, you're telling me my NC State college football playoff pick. You're saying it's there's no chance, right? They're done.
It's
Five
dead.
and six ain't cutting it. Damn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I'm
was
gonna go.
go by.
That was one of the worst calls in a mountain of bad calls. Yeah, that's not good. Not good. They've been disappointing. I'm gonna go UNC. They're gonna win one more for Mac, who had as weird of a saga as it gets. From trying to resign to refusing to resign to getting fired. You had a good run there in your second tenure at UNC. Went better than I thought it would have been. I hand up. I thought it was kind of silly that he went back, but here we are, a couple years, like a decade or so later. Um, Good run, Mac Brown.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. You let your quarterbacks answer their press conference questions this time. Good for you. I'm going to go UNC to cover.
love it. All right, last one, Bobby. OU earned a spot. Earned a earned a bowl bid, bowl eligibility, whatever, however you want to
Yeah,
say it. We'll talk at this point of the show. They're going to go to the other Death Valley and play LSU in a SEC matchup. Both teams are pretty much out of the playoff picture, playing for pride at this point. Brian Kelly, been a long year for him. Some tough losses, and not just on the field. He lost his recruit to Michigan. So a lot of people are asking, why the hell do we have Brian Kelly as our coach if he can't recruit and he can't win games? So this is not going to be a pretty. Um, this could get ugly if the Tigers lose this game. Um, but I don't think they do. I think OU really shut out against Alabama. I think they turned a page. I think there's a lot of good things on the horizon. Now that you have the defense figured out, I think OU was playing for so much in the last game. And that was such an emotional win for them that I think that they can compete against LSU. And I would not be surprised if they pull off the win, but I'm going to go with the Tigers um, to escape, um, to sort of salvage what's been a really, really bad season for them.
I am so proud of my Oklahoma Sooners, not just for beating Alabama, but for working their way back onto the Weekenders slate. It has been a long time since the Crimson and Cream have popped up into one of our pre-show notes, and I'm happy for it, especially because it's after a good result. Yeah, last week was incredible, and I think the problem is almost like the vibes at OU are too high, and the vibes at LSU are like too low, where I think LSU needs this one to kind of salvage some stuff. Saturday night in Death Valley, it's senior night. Um, I think OU did discover something on offense with this kind of crazy running scheme they have. Uh, I don't know if it's replicable in the sense that when you see it coming, can you handle it? LSU has struggled with running quarterbacks. Diego Pavia gave them hell. OU's probably going to have to air it out more than they did last time, which look, the bar was low. The bar was real damn low. I think they had 65 passing yards. They're probably going to need more if they want to beat LSU. I think Oklahoma sticks around with this one. I like them to cover. I think last time I saw the spread was 6, but ultimately, I think just the road at Death Valley, it's too damn hard to win there. I think LSU makes enough plays when it counts to get a win. But I agree. I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw an Oklahoma win here. Just given what we saw last week, that defense is lethal. It's damn good. If the Sooners can hold on to the football, put them in good positions to succeed, let's see. I'll be at this one. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait to hear you report back from that one.
Assuming
Um,
I make it back.
yeah, should be a fun one in Baton Rouge. All right, lock of the week. Last week, Bobby and I both hit green beans. Bobby with the savvy call of Arizona State -3. Great win there. They got the win by 5. So nice call there. Moves Bobby's score for the year up to 16. He's been impressive this year. I felt really confident. Probably one of my most confident picks of the year. Notre Dame Army would go over 44 and a half. Notre Dame, like I said last week, just been dominating in these lopsided games, scoring, over 35 points. So you just sort of had to rely on the other team to put up like 10, 15, 10, 12, 13. And that game went way over the total. I believe it was like, yeah, Notre Dame went over that by themselves by scoring 49. So two green calls. So I'm still way behind though. I got 8. Bobby's got 16. Got some catching up to do. We still have a little bit of time with, um, the playoff and everything. Might have to fix some of the scoring a little bit just to like make help. But anyway, whatever. We'll figure that out later. Um, for my lock of the week, I'm taking Georgia. Just keeping it simple here. Georgia gets the win. Not gonna mess around with spreads. Um, gonna keep it really simple here, just to grab the 2 points and get a little bit closer to you, Bobby. Locking it in.
I like it. Keep it simple, straightforward. Uh, I am going to go with a team that I think is just has such a good home field advantage. This is going to be a moment, and I'm going to lock up. And not only that, I love a good hater pick, so I'm going to go Texas A&M plus 5.5 at home against Texas. I just think the moment's too big. It's I would be surprised if Texas pulled this out, especially with the hobbled Ewers. I feel like this one is going to be one for the ages, and in a college football season that has been just so storybook picturesque, it just feels to me like A&M one is going to win the game. One of the two things is going to happen: they're going to straight up win the game, or two, they're going to lose in the most heartbreaking fashion possible, which would be essentially a game-winning field goal. So, shades of, I think it was Justin Tucker who did it to him last time out. It'd be kind of funny if Bert Auburn did it to him to end this one. So I like A&M to cover 5.5. I think it's going to be a great game. In my opinion, I think it's going to end up being probably the game of the college football season. I'm so thrilled. Well, I can't watch it because I'll be at the OU LSU game. I'm thrilled to see what the hell happens.
All right. Well, those are our locks. I got Georgia. Bobby's got Texas A&M plus 5.5. I got some catching up to do, so come back next week to see how we did. It's been fun reacting to the playoff and talking about these big games during rivalry week. And yeah, like I said, we'll be back to recap the or react to the rankings after what I'm sure will be a crazy college football week. So tune in for that, and we can't wait to see you then. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and we'll see you again right here on Multiplicity Media. Peace out.
Okay.
Cool. So we just have to do Texas and